Hi, I'm Zach Rizer, and welcome back to another bass pedals and effects review here. So today we're going to jump into a very cool pedal that I actually just rebought because I forgot how much I liked it. This is the Electro Harmonix Superego Synth Engine right here. Very unique pedal. It's kind of an expanded version of the Electro Harmonix Freeze pedal, which was also a very cool pedal. So let's jump into it. There's a lot of different ways to use this pedal, and as usual, I'll quickly go over some of the more common ways, and then I'll show you the way that I choose to use it most of the time for most of the video here. So to start us off, here's my dry bass tone, my Dingwall ABZ 6-string neck pickup. All right, so a very common way that a lot of people use this pedal is in the latching mode. So latching means I don't have to hold my foot down. I just hit it once and it sustains. So I can play a chord, and then you can hear that in the background that chord continues to just kind of do its drony oscillation thing, very similar to the Electro Harmonix Freeze pedal. Since the dry knob is up, I can play on top of this if I want. Anytime I want to go to another chord, I play a new chord and I hit the button again. Go back to the original, play a chord, hit the button again. Now, this is a cool way to use the pedal. I just find it to be a little bit one-dimensional for me. Because I use a looper almost all the time, I never really have a reason to sustain this, then play on top of it, sustain this, then play on top of it, except for maybe for an introduction to a song, which it can be very cool in that purpose. Now, the latch mode does have one really cool feature, though, that I do like, which is the ability to stack your chords. So rather than switching from one chord to the next, every time you push the button, it actually stacks the harmonies on top of each other, so you can play these voicings that you never could normally play. So I turned the speed or layer knob all the way up, so now it's going to stack each voicing every time when I play it on top. I also turned my bass signal, all the way off, so you can really hear the stacking effect. So I'll start with a simple D major 7 chord. So you can hear that sustained. But let's say I want to add a low D to the bottom. I can play a low D on my bass, hit the button again, and now I have this big wide chord. Let's say I want to add a 5th and a 9 on top. So now I have this huge harmony that I never could create without this pedal. Also, if I had the dry knob up still, I could, of course, solo on top of all this stuff. Etc. So that's a pretty cool feature of the latch mode. But let's move on to the momentary mode. So momentary means I have to hold the button down if I want it to sustain. So if I hold the button down, it sustains, but once I let go, it dies out. Now what makes the momentary mode really cool is you can quickly switch from chord to chord to chord. So for instance, I could go from a D to a C to an A to a G. Sorry, I'm not thinking very clear today. This kind of treats this pedal almost more like a piano sustain pedal, where you can quickly go from one note to the other. And of course, you can solo on top of each of these or play over the signal if you want. Anyway, that's really about all I would ever use the momentary mode for, is this quick chord switch from one to the other. It is cool if you want to be able to play on top of your signal. But let's switch over to the last mode, which is auto mode, and this is the way that I use this pedal almost all of the time. The reason being is, like I said, I don't have a reason very often to solo on top of a drone. I find it to be a little bit boring to solo on top of a drone, so I like to loop a pattern on my looper and then solo over that. But I do love using this pedal, treating it as kind of its own sound. So rather than using it as an effect with my bass, I almost treat the pedal as the instrument and my bass as the controller. So now in auto mode, you don't have to push the button at all to re-trigger a chord. It automatically does it every time you play a new note, which is cool because now I can hands-free kind of treat this, like I said, like its own instrument. I also can really utilize the glide feature or the glissando feature, which is really 90% of the reason I like this pedal. This glissando feature allows your chords to actually slide in to each other. So I'll give you a quick demonstration of that. So this is no glissando, 3 different chords. It's kind of cool, but you can hear how abruptly it goes from one chord to the next kind of choppy. Turn this glide feature up though, and now this is really where this pedal starts to shine. Just gorgeous. Such a cool sound. And so unique. I mean, you could kind of emulate this if you played a fretless bass by sliding chord to chord, but the way that it glides each note is not uniform, so it's not like it's perfectly sliding one string to string or something like that. It's such a cool sound. So this is kind of the home, the bass sound I use for all the ways I use the Superego. I don't really change anything on the Superego, I just change what I run it into. So I run it into other effects. And it does have an effects loop on it, so you could do this kind of internally with the Superego, but yet again, since I loop, I don't really have a reason to use the effects loop, and I find it to be a little bit of a waste of space for the way that I use the pedal. So I'll show you right off the bat one of my favorite settings, which is to take exactly what I just played, except run it into a huge reverb and a big chorus. So the reverb sounds like this. It's off one of my H9s here. Just a massive hall reverb. And then a chorus from the Strymon Mobius. But now with the Superego running into that, it's when it gets really pretty. So let's play something a little bit different. And just, I mean, you might as well have a glorious synth sitting in front of you because it sounds just as pretty as some of the pads that I can make on something like my Waldorf synthesizer. And you can, of course, change the character of your pad by what you run it into. So instead of a chorus, what if we used a phaser, for instance? Now you get that really slidey, washy phaser effect. Or a flanger is going to be similar, but more resonant. Instead of a reverb, I'll go back to the chorus here, but what if instead of a reverb we run it into a big delay? So now without this pedal on, it sounds like this, by the way. Cool sound, but very bass-like. Turn this on. I'm not a bass player anymore, I'm a synth player. Very, very cool. Now, of course, you can do this with single notes as well. Instead of a chord, I can play a single note like this. And if you push a distortion on into the, so the distortion is before my Superego. So instead of my dry bass going into the Superego, it's this sound. Into the Superego, though. Get this very unique kind of weird synth timbre. Yet again, run it into a delay and a chorus, or a delay and a phaser, or a reverb and a phaser, whatever. Play a power chord. Put a little more glissando effect on. Pretty awesome. So real quick, as a rundown, that's a distortion into the Superego, into a chorus, into a delay. The last thing I'll show you here is using pitch-based effects after the Superego, which I use off my other H9. You can see the reviews of my pitch factor presets there. So starting off simple, what about a whammy? So I can slide the pitch up and down. So I have a frozen signal, but then I can slide with my foot up an octave. Pretty awesome. I'm going to switch to a reverb so it's not quite as out there. Same thing. Very cool. You can use an actual pitched effect like a fifth. So this is a harmonizer. So with my dry bass, just to get an idea, if I play one note, I'm actually getting 2 notes. With the Superego on, you get something awesome like this. And now I can slide the pitch up to an octave. So it goes from a fifth to an octave. I also could run it into something like a crystals effect. So everyone's familiar with the crystal crystals effect by now, but with my dry bass, the crystal sounds like this. Already a very synthy sound. So without the crystals, here's the Superego. This is Superego chorus reverb. And now you put that crystals effect on. And now I'm going to slide my harmonies around a little bit, and you get an incredibly cool pad. Without the crystals, the same thing. So cool. Anyway, I choose to use the Superego like this. Obviously, there's a ton of ways to use this pedal. It's just such a unique and very cool pedal. But that glissando feature, for me, is what makes this worth having on my board. So I hope you enjoyed. Please subscribe below. I'll be back very soon with some more effects pedals review videos. Thanks.